My name's Donald Smith. I'm originally from Anderson, Indiana. Moved here in the early 50s. And my father was a Delco Ramey employee at a tool and die maker. And he could just about do anything, I believe. And we built Agner's Paradise. And then we moved into Smith's Garage. And that's where I come in. I bought the shop. And I left there in '85, had an accident, and I got out. I bought the shop from my father. And about the first week after I bought it, Cecil Harvard, our fire chief, he come in the shop and said, "You're going to be a fireman, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that." And I says, "No, I got a business to run. I can't be leaving and going to fight fires." Make a long story short, I started in the fire department. And all he wanted me to do is run across the street, because my shop was right straight across from the fire department. All I got to do is run across the street, open the doors, start the engines on the truck, and then that's all you're going to have to do. Well, that didn't last very long. First thing I know, I'm out fighting fires, doing everything. Luckily, I had a good guy at the shop to run it while I was out fighting fires. Well, when we first come into Florida, I had a Cushman motor scooter. I was very fortunate to have it, and about two other buddies of ours would get on the back end of it, and we'd run all over town. It was Norman Randolph, which he's gone, and Gary Hogue, and he's gone. And after that there, I finally bought an old car. Well, I bought it from the preacher's son. And it was a Ford coupe, but when we got it, the motor was in the trunk. So
wheel drive.
New deal. So naturally we had to put a motor where it belonged, put it up front, and then we messed around with that a lot.
How old were you when you first started the fire department?
Oh my goodness, I had to be, I really can't tell you, in the 30s I would guess.
Yeah, we try to forget those.
Yeah, I tried to forget it.
What was the first fire you went on, do you remember?
No, my goodness, Dad. No, I ain't gonna answer that one. No, I don't remember what the first fire was.
The one I remember the most was when the gas plant was right across. You were sideways a little off for the fire department, but that freaking LP plant was right there, and Gary Murphy brought in a rusted out LP tank, and the woman that ran the office was in there, was filling it. She never bothered to check the tank. She hooked it up, opened the valve, and turned her back, and the bottom of the tank blew out.
Yes.
And it was pouring liquid propane everywhere. You were the one that went in there and hit the switch to shut the pump off.
Yeah,
You couldn't turn the valve off. It was pumping, it was spewing so hard it froze the valve.
Yeah.
Went in
I
there,
run
killed
in
the
through
pump.
there, and I couldn't even see where I was hardly going. The gas was so bad.
One car with a bad spark plug wire, we were all done. Because I got there, and it was still spewing out.
Yeah.
And that was, I remember, boy, that was,
That was
it looked like fog.
I missed that call. I don't know what year that was.
Came right across 41. It was, I don't know, 2 feet
What
high,
fog was? Yeah, it was around the shop too.
hissing and growling, making all kinds of noise.
If it would have blew up,
What year was that
man.
now?
if it would blew up, it took out the fire department because the fire department was right across the street.
I'd have to guess 76, maybe?
I think it was before I became fire chief, and that was in December of '76, so it could have been the summer or sometime in there.
Because we used to be gone for the month of June.
Yeah.
We got here September of '75. That's when we arrived. And the second day we were there, I was on the fire department.
Oh, yeah.
Went to see Cecil that that Monday and told me to go find this guy named Dan at the firehouse. I said, okay. That was it. That was the run. So yeah, but that was scary. Jeez, I don't think anything ever had me, what if something, but you didn't have time. You didn't have time to think.
You didn't
got
think.
in there,
You just
hit
knew.
that. I'm just thankful that was a enclosed switch. If that thing had been exposed and drew a spark, we were all done.
Yeah,
We wouldn't be here.
No,
me and
no.
you.
Half the town would be gone too.
Yeah, would have been a big hole there.
Oh, yeah.
There was another call that was similar to that. It was behind Mother's Kitchen in Pennsylvania Avenue, and it was at nighttime. And it was after 72, but before I got married was chief in 76, because my wife and I got married in 72, and we lived in the Bonita Shores. And about 10, 11 o'clock at night, the tones went off, and time I got up to Old 41 near it, what had happened was this drunk couple had went out partying, and there was an alley behind Mother's Kitchen, and they come in there with their car and they hit the top of the tank and broke it off. And the car stalled, and they were sitting in the car, and Deputy Lyles rolled up on the scene,
Yep.
turned his car off. He ran up in the propane, which was 2 to 4 feet off the ground. Weiland still had their truck at their house. James, I think, was there, and his dad. I don't remember his dad's name, but they came from west of the railroad tracks. When they got the railroad tracks, he turned his truck off, and they were running up towards it. And Frank Lyles was standing there as a sheriff's deputy, telling them, "Don't start the engine, don't start the engine." And the drunk started turning the motor over, and when he did, it went kaboom, and it blew the two Weiland firefighters head over heels, and they got up and ran, and they had singed hair. Frank Lyles, it split his sheriff's department. All of his pants were just shredded, and blew him off his feet. And when I got there was a big column of fire coming up underneath the car, and it was trying to get to the building. And he died, and she was rushed to the hospital, and it blew a building next to it off the blocks by 2 feet, that shed behind it.
Yeah, that
And
was.
It ended up burning for 8 hours before we just let the fire burn out.
Wow.
And that's how we put it out. But that was a second propane big thing. That one actually blew up.
Yeah.
The one you're talking about didn't blow up.
No, we were
Lucky.
Or we could have lost the fire station.
never stopped. We never stopped the first car
Oh yeah.
that was coming up 41.
Oh yeah. Everything is a miracle.
Oh man,
Your stars were aligned.
They were definitely.
Well, you're in there trying to do this. It's hard to think we're
But
not
the
used to a
noise.
gas fire.
Oh
The
yeah.
noise the thing made. Maybe this isn't the right move.
Yeah, because that station across the street, we housed an old Chevrolet truck that was military, a surplus truck. We had one of the brush trucks in there, one of the 41 brush truck, and we had a cab over Ford Ward LaFrance, and it was a 1971. And those are the 3 trucks that was in that station.
And they were wedged in there.
Oh, and behind the station back in those days, the Lee County Sheriff's Office had a little dispatch back there, I think. Remember Woody worked out there? Was that before Woody? Because he worked out there for a while answering the phones, and then they moved over to Reynolds Street.
Yeah, because all I remember was Charlene being back there.
Oh, then that was after the
Yeah.
sheriff moved out. They
Yeah.
were over at Reynolds Street then, because they answered and dispatched all of our calls. It rang into there and said each house had to pick it up at third ring. You know, the Woody, which was a dispatcher for the sheriff's office, he would answer it, and then he'd set our tones off and alert everybody to it. Well, you weren't here in the big fire of what, 72 that started north of town up
No.
to Shannon's. That was
No,
before
I was-
you.
Yeah.
I think Donald got in on that one. That was an all-dayer.
Mm.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
remember the hell of the estates.
Oh yeah,
When the
Golden Gate
went up,
Estates.
We lost that Marco Miranda. I
Marco
I still
Miranda.
got the jumpsuit with his patch on it.
Really?
Still have it. Don't fit anymore, but I still got it.
That was the first call I ever went on that someone died on it. And it was a forestry employee died on a bulldozer out there fighting that fire. And
Burned him over.
we had what, 2 trucks out there, I think, or 3, but that was a big fire. That was in 1985 is when he died.
That's when that fire burned over my truck.
Yeah, it burned over. There's a picture of it. The news press or somebody took a picture. Donald, you couldn't tell it was Donald, but him and another fireman were hiding behind the truck, and you got flames coming over the top of the old International 1956 truck, the first new truck we ever bought, had a front mount Darley on it.
Still runs.
Yeah, it's still here. It don't pump anymore or anything, but it's just a show truck for parades and stuff for kids. But yeah, we was out there for probably a week on that fire. Yeah, I remember them 3 old trucks in there. You had to get the brush truck out of the bay. When you opened that old wood door, it was real heavy to push up. You had to get the brush truck out before you get that little Chevrolet out. It wouldn't fit out of the bay. And that was the original bay that the volunteers built, in the 50s? They told me they went to the beach and got seashells to build that building and mixed the mud by hand.
You know, I forgot all about that. Sure as heck.
And then sometime, what was it, in the, I think it was 1960 something, 68, they added that side bay onto it.
Mm-hmm.
That was before they bought the 71 truck, so it had to have been 68, 69, somewhere in there.
It was still crowded.
Yes.
Still crowded.
Still crowded. You didn't make too many mistakes.
And none of us had bunker gear. They weren't assigned to us.
No,
They were hung in the building.
Hang on the truck, yeah.
Yeah.
Grab it when you went.
First one there, either grabbed it off the truck or it was hanging on racks on the side. Maybe the helmets fit you, and maybe they didn't. Donald would always be at the fire station first because he was right across the street during the week. You know, I don't know if that siren would deafen you.
Yeah,
you turned it on once or twice, didn't you?
Yeah. It's pretty loud.
I'm trying to
Pretty loud.
remember when we built the second story. On
That
on
was
little
about
back building.
1979,
It was
I think.
before 80, I think.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've still got the trusses from it at my house on the pole barn. It was
Okay.
around 1979 that we added that second on, so we had a meeting room.
Yep.
And then Station 2 was built before I took over. That was built in 1970 on Mango Drive. And that Kim Shaw and Walter Pond and some of the volunteers built that second brush truck, that 1943 Ford GTB for down there. And then in 73 we bought the second cab over truck. So we bought the first one in 71.
Okay. Yep.
And then the second one in 73.
And those things were
Oh,
those
cold.
cab overs. God, were they cold natured?
Oh.
First gear, like I said it before, good for about 20 feet.
Yeah, it
That was
felt.
it. You better be shifting because you weren't going anywhere.
And you didn't wear seatbelts back then. Remember, you'd bounce up off the seat. That thing was bouncing in first gear.
I do remember screwing up and getting in the truck to drive, and my boots were rolled down. And if you did that, you should have always pulled them up, because if you did it when they were rolled down, you got in there. When you went to take your foot off the gas and hit the brake, the boot would catch the seat.
Oh,
you
yeah.
couldn't lift
You
your
couldn't
foot
get
up.
out for
That was a little nervy.
Yeah.
I didn't go for that. That
Well,
was a
if more than one volunteer got to the station, Donald knows this, that the first one would usually drive, open the doors, and jump in the seat.
That was my job.
Yeah, that was Donald's job. The siren was still going on the building, and volunteers were showing up. And when you waited usually 2-3 minutes to give people maybe 5. And if more got there, one more jump in the cab, and all the rest of them would jump on the tailboard, and they'd hang on that bar as you was driving down the road.
Scary.
You know,
And and nobody fell off.
and we never wrecked. We never rolled a truck. You know, all those years, all those volunteers, we never rolled a truck.
Damn lucky.
You know.
Yeah.
So that was pretty safe. But I mean, you spend back in the old days when I first started. I remember getting $2 a call as a volunteer, no matter how long the call lasted.
$2.
I think it was 4 when I got on.
And then I think at one point, and it didn't matter if it was a 5-minute call
Nope.
or an 8-hour call. I mean, you got $4 or you got 5.
Whichever.
And Donald would come back. I remember Donald coming back. He said, "Man, can you guys clean this or do that?" He says, "I got a business to run." And we'd wash the truck and fill it
Clean
with
it
water,
up.
clean the hose.
Yeah, because that driver's supposed to do that.
Oh yeah, but we understood that you had a business,
Yeah.
And a lot of employees worked at the lumber yards, Benson's, Haynes. I mean, all over, tree trimming people.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of their business, the owners like
Our
Don.
shop was just
You know.
on the other side of Rosemary.
Yeah, and that had to be a burden on the business owner and running your businesses, but you guys made it.
I kind of like getting out of there. Once in a while, that radio would go off. I'm out the gate, you know.
But you know, one thing I got to say about the people, when I did go off for a fire and come back, if that car was still sitting there and needed worked on, they was not aggravated or disturbed at us leaving the car to go fight a fire.
Oh no, they were very respectful, and they understood because you were donating your time and effort to help the community.
I only had one guy at the old shop.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, he bitched when I got back, and well, you know, I've been waiting here, and I went, you know what? You go wait somewhere else.
No, I was very fortunate there.
The volunteers, and I don't remember who they were that started the fire department as a not-for-profit in '50, and then they redid the charter, the same volunteer charter, not-for-profit, somewhere around '54, '55. And then they all realized with barbecues and fish fries in the early days, and it was before my time, but this is what they told me, you know, and Donald probably remember some of that before I got on board.
Oh yeah.
Fish fries and the barbecues and going around fundraising. I mean, the old timers used to take them old soda acid fire extinguishers, and they would go around all the businesses in town and recharge them because that's what was used. And they would charge $2 because they come to my parents' Imperial River Court, and we'd have 3 or 4 of them there. And then they once a year they'd come through, change out the soda acid, remix it in the tank, check it, put a tag on it. Pat Black was one of them that did that. Pat Black, I just remembered his name.
Good gracious.
But they'd do that, and then he'd say, how much do we owe you? And my dad would pay him, you know, for 4 or 5 of them, $2 a piece, $10. Once a year we tagged them. And then they outlawed those, I don't remember what year, those little soda acid fire extinguishers, but you had to turn them upside down, and once the soda and the water mixed with the acid, it created pressure, and then that forced the water out of a little bitty hose, and it only good for paper or wood or a brush fire, and they didn't last
Boy, did
long.
it leave a mess behind.
Oh yeah.
That was some sticky, nasty stuff.
Oh yeah, you didn't want to get the acid on you. And then he taught me how to service them. I used to go around and help him service them. And then got all that went away, and then sometime between doing that, the fish fries, the barbecues, going around asking for donations, people give donations, come, I think it was May 31st, around 1965, the Florida legislature, they petitioned them, and one of our local legislative, I don't remember who it was, they passed a bill and it got signed by the governor, and that's when we became a taxing authority, and we actually started out, you know, budgeting money and taxing everybody that was in town, but there wasn't a lot of people back in '65. You know, what I guess there was 1 or 2 red lights in town?
One.
One red light. I remember the first one was what, at Beach Road and Old 41, wasn't it? By the dog track? I think that was the very first red light, wasn't it? I'm thinking.
Had to be, because there wasn't anything at
There wasn't
Rosemary.
nothing else.
There wasn't anything at Rosemary.
Well, there was one. Maybe that was the second one up there by Max Standard.
Yeah, that was, yes.
At Terry Street,
Terry
you
Street,
think?
I think, was the second one. I think the third one was Pennsylvania Avenue. Was the third one down by Mother's Kitchen.
Okay.
That's where it used to turn. Pennsylvania used to come that way before they realigned it.
The real.
But, you know, that's generally where we had a lot of our wrecks at. Beach Road and Old 41 if it was a car wreck. Or the curve south of Cousins where you were up there when you relocated.
Dead Man's.
Yeah, Dead Man's Curve.
Dead Man's Curve.
Yeah, because a lot of people would come flying down from Fort Myers, and they always seem to wreck coming south, didn't they, Donald? I don't know why, but they wreck coming south.
Yeah.
And then that railroad tracks up there, for some reason, that always claimed a bunch of people north of
Oh
town.
yeah.
God, I went on too many of those, were nasty.
Oh, yeah.
That one guy that was a realtor, real big guy.
Yeah, he worked for Fidel Florida Realty. I can't remember his name.
That train nailed him. We got him out of there. It was like a bag of jelly. You know, I don't think he had 2 bones that weren't broken.
I'll be damned.
What a mess.
And then what was the young?
And it was always a local.
Oh yeah.
It was always somebody who lived in Bonita
That should've
that
known
knew
better.
the track was there,
That
knew the crossing was there, and just drove right through it.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah,
it.
like
So-
old lady Daughtry.
I mean, that railroad.
Yeah.
See there at Terry Railroad.
Yeah, what was that, Winslow, or what was his name, that young kid that got hit on a bicycle there at Terry Street? He was paralyzed for years and years and years.
That was his first name.
Oh, I just talked to his wife Sunday.
I do remember him.
I can't remember, but he was paralyzed. His buddy, I think, was killed. Wasn't he on that? He was on a motorcycle or a bike or something trying to beat the train.
And you know, it just
You can't beat trains.
nah.
No.
But I mean, we would have car wrecks, some train wrecks. You never had much bicycle wrecks back those days. 'Cause a lot of people didn't ride bicycles on the road.
No.
You know.
I think my worst one. Well, two of them come to mind. One of them was when they first opened New 41, and there was no traffic light.
Oh, at Beach Road,
They had
New
a
41.
stop sign on both sides.
Yeah.
That worked, and you couldn't stop in the middle because the median wasn't wide enough. And that car got nailed. It was coming. It was on the Beach Road going east, and got nailed, and it just crushed the car.
What did you get hit with?
What do you mean?
What hit it? It wasn't by itself, was he?
Oh no! It was a woman driving,
Right.
and there was
And
a
the-
baby under the dash.
Ooh.
We got her out
That
with the
was a
jug.
cement truck run over there.
That's right.
It was a cement.
Chewed
That was
that car. Oh
that was the last ambulance call I made.
yeah, that was nasty. Got the kid out though. The baby came out. Like you could hear her crying. You know, there was a lot of screaming and noise
Oh, yeah.
going on, but where's the baby? And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. You couldn't see it. Rolled up under the dashboard, like a little cocoon.
Well,
so
like,
it survived.
they just probably laid it on the passenger seat. You know, back in them days, you didn't much strap
Didn't
it
have
down.
car seats, did
No.
And it wasn't. I don't think it was 2 months later. I'm at the shop, the original shop, and the call comes in. Car versus pedestrian, Rosemary. Well, I mean, I'm right there. It's like driving to the next driveway.
Yeah.
I come flying out. There's this lady standing in the road screaming. I hit the brakes, slid off to the side, and there's a little 5-year-old girl.
Huh.
Jumped out between two cars to get a ball, and bang. And her mother's screaming, "Save her!" And I'm looking. I mean, her eyes were open, packed full of sand, and I started CPR anyway. I wasn't gonna be the one to say,
No.
"No, she's not here." You know,
No.
terrible.
Try.
I still think about that.
Well, back then, the early volunteers, a lot of them just had basic first aid training.
Yeah.
Basic.
And
Yeah.
then later on, you started getting CPR training, but nobody was really EMTs or anything
Not
until
then.
about 1976
No, not
on.
then.
I think me, Keeler, Lanny Keeler, me,
Lanny Keeler.
Debbie, and my
Never
wife
heard that
Debbie,
name.
and I think that Mike Wesley, Mike Wesley was already an EMT because he worked for the county
Yeah.
with the ambulance. But we were like the first EMTs or whatever that ever came, and then more took classes after
Sure.
that. But they had to go at night to Edison Community College back then
Yep.
to get it all the way to Fort Myers. It was like 72 hours was all it was. Now it's like 300-400 hours for the same EMT class.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, when I went to fire school in '76, the fire school was only 200 hours, and now it's over almost 500 and some hours for the same school. But all the volunteers there, I think we had training in the house, and then later on we had 30-hour. The
Oh,
state mandated 30 and 60-hour
We used to
trainings.
go to the airport and
Oh,
do
yeah.
training up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got some hazmat training in the later days and all that, but the early days, you just showed up and this is
done
what
what-
fire is.
You done what you had to do. That's
It
right.
burns orange, it's hot, and you squirt water on it. When we first started, but
If you see sparks, don't squirt the water.
Don't
that's
squirt
right,
the
that's
water.
electrical. But
Or
did
the
you,
mags are on fire.
did you guys ever run those Indian tanks that used to be on the brush trucks?
Had 'em up. I had those up in Connecticut.
Did you?
That's what's that? 5 gallons of water
Yeah, that's how
in
I.
a brass tank.
Yeah, with a pump. That's
Oh.
how I first started.
Well, up there, we didn't have in Connecticut. We had a lot of wooded areas. We didn't have anything that would go there.
Oh yeah.
So that's what you did. You had one guy with a shovel, one with a rake, and 2 or 3 with Indian tanks, and off you went.
I remember almost every truck we had 1 or 2 of them Indian tanks
sitting
back
right on a rack on the side.
You back up to it, put your arms through, put it on, hook the things, pull it tight, and then you
There you go.
and you walked. You walked a lot of times and hit little spots.
And if the guy that loaded it before you put it on didn't screw the cap on tight,
Oh yeah.
you were soaking wet. That would run out down your neck and down your back.
And then the brush truck or a pumper truck would sit there when you're at. You had to walk all the way back to it. And they took a hose and filled it with the thing.
Yeah, you thought you were doing good because it got lighter.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you got another 40 pounds on you.
They want to load
5
you back
gallons
up.
heavy.
Yeah,
You put it on your back.
not at first,
going,
but then
oh
after
yeah,
that first couple minutes, the weight increases.
very much, very much.
I remember the helmets we had were plastic too. If you got under eave of a house and that tar was running off, a lot of times it would hit on and melt your dang helmet. That probably happened to Dollar. You run down your neck,
No,
burn
I
your neck.
didn't have no tar on me there.
The fire embers, when you're fighting brush
Yeah.
fires, they
Oh,
would
yeah.
get you. You was in blue jeans,
Yeah.
and the bunker coats were
Yeah, they were
black.
short,
You know,
black,
And
and
when
hot,
you was on
and stinky.
the old woods truck, you didn't want the bunker gear because it was so damn hot.
oh yeah.
It
Yeah, you
was-
sit down in a hole with them old Russian
Yeah.
Jeeps. You know,
The motor's right here, baby.
Yeah.
and,
the engine
and the other
transmission-
motor was right there.
Right.
Two-cylinder air cooled.
made a lot of noise, and we never had air muffs or any of that stuff.
Earplugs.
No,
No. Well,
didn't have none of that back then.
I drove them all. But first one was probably the old woods truck. What number was that old son?
41.
41, yeah. 41. I drove that up a lot of times, many times. Because the other truck, woods truck, was on the beach road.
Yep.
It was on the beach road, so
42.
no, whoever could get on that truck, that's where we went. I remember one time Dan, I ought to tell him, but I ought to. Remember that time I was on there and we was out in the woods and I was making a curve, and I think I was making a curve, but you said, "That's good enough, let's go." And I said, "No, that ain't good enough. You squirt that water," or something like that, you know.
The driver was always the boss. He's the one that said, "Hey,
Yeah.
hit that or hit this."
Right. And then he went right in there and went right. I remember something on me and Dan.
I remember one time there was a boat fire or something at Coconut, and you come running across the street, and you drove the old, what was it, 1-ton Dodge? That was a 76 Dodge.
Yeah.
It had a little 250. It was made by E1. The truck had a little
Yeah.
250
Little
pump,
rescue.
250-gallon water tank, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you
About
drove it. I was in the passenger seat, and we were going towards Coconut for a boat fire at the docks down there at the end of Coconut Road, Weeks Fish Camp.
Wiggs
wasn't it?
or Johnson's.
Yeah, one of those two.
Either one.
And Donald went around the curve up there where just north of Strike Lane, you know how that curve kind of weaved around before you turned to the right? And we got halfway in that curve. I says, "Holy shit, Donald." He says, "Shut up and hold on." And we were sliding sideways. And I'm going, "Ooh, Donald, easy."
I hit it
easy."
just a wee bit too hard.
Yeah.
Just that much.
Just
over
a wee.
there. Yeah.
And we didn't roll, and Donald let off the throttle, and he gained control of that truck. But he drove a little slower the rest of the way to the call.
Yeah.
You know?
I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
It does tend to pucker you up.
You know.
But I was trying to get there, man.
Yeah. Donald would be driving a truck in the early days, the pumper truck, and 2 or 3 of us volunteers would be hanging on the back, gripping those handlebars and feet on the running boards, and you're trying to bounce up in the air and say, "How bad's the smoke up there?"
Hey,
You know,
everybody
can
wants
you-
to look.
Can
Yeah,
you see
it has
the
a look.
smoke? You know, we weren't worried about falling off or a car hitting us or the truck rolling over. We were just worried about what type of fire we had to fight when we got there, you know?
We were 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. And we all made it. I mean, every one of us probably drove a truck that you pushed on the brake pedal and you went right through the stop sign or stop light or something. It just
Scariest
didn't stop.
My scariest one was trying to turn on a Morton Drive, and the pedal was with the cab over that had the 3208 cat.
Oh, the 1979 E1.
Was that an E1?
Yeah, E1.
Man, that pedal, because on an air brake, when you push hard enough, the pedal rolls over. Well, I was standing on it, and it wasn't stopping.
It doesn't roll.
And Morton Drive was coming up real quick, and I'm going, "Oh, please, let me get around that corner."
Jeez.
Those old days of fighting, a lot of fires we had was in mobile homes.
Yep.
Because they weren't constructed very good back then.
Oh yeah.
And it'd either be in the wall or under the floor. You had to tear the siding off and crawl underneath it.
Somebody had added something and didn't bother to cover anything, and yeah, it was that's scary.
There's all kinds of.
There was no fire hydrants back in those days
Oh, no.
because the water company didn't come in until what? Late 70s, 72, 73, somewhere in there is when they first got beneath the
Started.
utility came into town. And they only put minimal amount of fire hydrants in the whole town, so we didn't have.
Yeah, I remember they stopped the line. It was right in front of our old shop.
Really?
Just
There-
past Rosemary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my father-in-law, who was always very smooth talking, he goes out to talk to the guy, because they're putting a valve right at the end of the line, and he says, "Well, when are we coming across to me?" He said, "Well, you don't have a meter." That was the wrong thing to say to him, because he'd had maybe 1 or 2 beers, but then this was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he was one of the first buyers of a meter. And boy, I mean, he ripped that guy up one side and down the other.
So he had a meter.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, we didn't have it, but we paid
You
for
paid
it.
for it.
Wow.
So then they come out and they try to put in a little 1/2-inch meter. That really didn't fly. He's got that paper, and it was just a sheet of paper, just an 8.5 by 11. He's shaking it in the guy's face. 1-inch meter. You don't need that much. Don't tell me what I need. I'm sitting across the street going, okay, this ain't working out too well. But it was so crude back then that the shutoff was on the other side of the street.
Oh, okay.
And it was like a water valve, a 1-inch gate valve in the ground. I don't know, we'd have a problem in the yard. You have to jump across traffic like playing Frogger. Dig it out, get down in there and the handle was long gone. Get down in there with a pair of vice grips, shut the water off, and then go back across the
So
street.
that reminds me that in the early days, before there was ever a water system, all the old volunteers, everybody had to know where the water was, where there's a pond here, or a river here, or a boat ramp.
Oh yeah.
There wasn't really a lot of swimming
We
pools.
didn't have hardly any swimming pools then either.
No.
No.
And all the little trucks carried a portable pump, a little Briggs and Stratton or something on it.
Yeah.
Little screamer.
It had a hose on there. You had to take the cap off and pour water in it to prime.
Primer.
Hope you had enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
drafting was an art back then.
Oh
That
yeah.
was one of the first things you had to learn.
There was a drafting tube I remember that was put in on Cockleshell Drive. There was a
It's still there.
is it? Anyway, as soon as you turn on Cockleshell,
Yeah.
there's like a 6-inch pipe pushed down to the 4.5, and there was a multi-story building going in their apartment complex, and there was no fire hydrants in there, and we made them put in that pipe as part of their building permits so we could get water. And one time all those volunteers was out there training, you guys might have been there, and we hooked the pipe up and we sucked and we couldn't get no water, and what the heck? We took the pipe off the side of the truck, and there was a great big old catfish sucked up in there against the strainer, and it was plugging the pump up. We couldn't get no water out of it.
Yeah, I remember they put all kinds of stone,
Yeah.
big stone down in the bottom
Yeah.
to give it a pocket to draw from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have to look now next time I go by there to see
Yeah,
if it's still
better
there.
check.
Really?
Yeah.
But I remember that was only one of the few pipes that we could hook onto. Everything else was either out of the river or a pond or someplace.
Yep.
That's one of the few things early things they'd teach you.
Oh
I
yeah.
know we had a well. What was that? A 3 or 5 horse pump at the fire station, Donald? We had a big well,
5, I believe, but
and we flipped the switch, and it filled our trucks up. We
Uh-huh.
had wherever the call was. We had to go all the way back to the station a
They-
lot of times
to get,
to get water because there was no other water out there.
oh, yeah. Hurry up and get that water.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
boy.
And are you back yet?
Yeah. Hurry every chance you get.
And the old radios in those trucks, they were what, 30, 40 watt? Very low wattage. They wouldn't talk, 10, 15 miles.
And what
maybe.
you heard was a car like that.
Yeah.
What?
And every once in a while, somebody get a new rookie and they say, hey, touch the top of that antenna, and you key the mic, and it burn a little spot in the bottom of their
It's
hand.
indoctrination.
That was what you pulled jokes on them. Or you got them underneath the truck. I remember as a volunteer in one of the early days I started, he said, oh, go under there and check that fitting. And when I did, one of the senior guys pulled the valve and soaked me with water.
Oh, a tank drain.
Yeah, tank drain.
There
Pulled
you
the
go.
tank drain. And a lot of times we had You guys, I'm sure, did it. You had to flush the tanks 2 or 3 times a year because didn't know where you filled up.
Right, right. You get trash in
It
there.
get nasty.
You got
Like
sand.
catfish.
Oh yeah.
And then we did, when we rebuilt the 41, I think, we took the top off and we sandblasted it. And then somebody had come up with this, a hot spray coating. I think it was like zinc.
Mm-hmm.
And it was with a torch. And it actually fused the zinc on the inside. That lasted the longest of anything. That was, but you still, if you didn't clean it out,
Oh.
you could get muck in there.
Yeah, I remember that now. The tanks had bolts on the top
The
and
whole
a
top came
gasket.
off.
You
Yep.
could bolt the tops off.
Yep.
And we had to clean the tanks. They were crawling down in. That was one of my early jobs too. Crawling down in that tank.
You
and
got
cleaning.
all the good jobs.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of stuff. I guess because I was little.
If Janie was here, she'd tell you the story about the girls when we had the ladies auxiliary, and we had a brush fire. I think it was on Coconut. I'm not sure. And we was cooking. I mean, there was just roaring out there. And we were running out of gas. And her and Mary got 3 5-gallon gas cans in the back of Janie's Suburban, and they're coming down the road, and the cans were old and they were leaky, and they could smell gas. And Mary's eyes got like saucers, and she's going, we can't. And he roll up the windows. Took one last breath and blew through, got to the other side. But they took a chance.
That's a chance.
Yeah, to get gas, people. Sometimes we would have gas cans in the stations.
Yep.
And the only way to get gas out in the field is somebody'd have to go back and auxiliary did that.
That's what they did. Yeah.
You know.
I mean, they bring sandwiches out too.
Sandwiches, cigarettes.
Oh, gotta have
Yeah.
them. Yeah, all right, jeez, gotta have them
Water.
cigarettes.
They never brought us beer though.
No,
No, I don't remember them bringing beer.
I wonder why.
Make a note on that.
That's one of the things that I don't think I ever can remember is no one ever drank out on a fire scene. Now you get back to the station, I remember you'd have a beer
Oh, yeah.
sometimes. There were some departments that had bars in their stations, but we never did. You did in
That one up
Connecticut.
in Connecticut.
You
Yeah.
used to tell us that, and I was amazed.
It was called the serving counter when the
What are you
chief was
talking-
around.
But we never did that in Bonita. I mean,
No.
somebody might have a pickup truck there and have a cooler in the back with some beer
Right.
in it or soda, and when you got all done, but a lot of us had to go back to work, so you couldn't
Yeah.
really
No, we
drink.
had a soda machine in Station 2 up north that was converted for beer.
Oh, wow.
Had the little 7-ounce Schaefer pony bottles.
Yeah, we never did that in Bonita. I remember when we finally got soda machines, the auxiliary reaped all the profits, and they kept them filled. Janie and
Yep.
Mary and my wife and
Yep.
different
It was only
volunteers.
Probably
water,
Betty
I
was
think.
You
in
know?
there.
Huh?
Betty was
Yeah,
in that
Betty.
deal.
They'd fill those machines, and if there was profit over and above what it cost us, they would put that money in auxiliary to support the firemen on a fire or stuff.
Yep.
You talk about beer and what have you. I was out on, I think it was 41, the old woods truck fighting fire, and there was somebody with me, but Lord knows who it was. But anyway, we was out there and hot, miserable. Cecil come up and I said, "You got some water? We need some water." He said, "No, I don't have any water. I don't have nothing." So we talked to him a little bit more, and I said, "What's that in the back end?" That was a can of beer laying or bouncing all over the damn place in his back seat, or the back end of his Scout. I took that beer and popped that thing open, and that was the best beer in the world I ever had.
God,
You were so thirsty.
It had to be, it had to be piss.
Oh God, it was terrible, but boy, it was
remember
wet.
Back then, we never even had goggles or nothing. If you wore glasses, you had glasses, but all the soot and the ashes from the brush fires, you always got something in your eyes.
Oh yeah.
You know,
And
back
stink. You'd get home, you'd take a shower, and your hair stunk for days.
Oh,
Couldn't get it out.
It'd be in your skin, that wood smoke or a house fire.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't think they had Dawn back then.
No.
That cut all that smell.
No, it was.
Yeah. Throw your clothes in the washer. Yeah, there was all that stuff. But I mean, maintenance of the buildings. I mean, some volunteer meetings would be maintenance nights.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be trucks. I mean, you took care of all their trucks after a while there over at the shop.
Oh yeah.
Right across the street, you guys kept them tuned up and the brakes. And,
James was my key man. Thank God I had him, because he really learned and wanted to learn. And because he was a plumber, and then he come over to work for me as a mechanic.
So being a plumber was perfect because I remember he used to work on some of the valves and stuff too.
Uh-huh.
You know, if we need fixing on them. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
But he was quite a guy.
I remember one other building that took place there. They had the main building, had 2 bays in it, and then I think there was a little spot on the back, remember, where the refrigerator and the stove and there was a bathroom. But then another office was added when the sheriff's department would come over there and start dispatching. They added that on before they went to Reynolds Street. So remember, there was 2 bays back there because my first original office was the bay, then the kitchen little area, and then there was a little office. And that little office was the first little office I worked out of as chief.
Yeah.
Wasn't your office all the way at the back?
Yes, that
Yeah.
used to be the
Charlene, 'cause
dispatch.
when you came in that door, Charlene's desk was right there.
Yep, Charlene's was in the first door on the side. And then you went through another little door, and that's back where the sheriff's office did our dispatching. And the sheriff's office
I don't
dispatching
remember
in the
those.
early days.
I don't remember that at all.
They must have moved out before you come
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, that was
How
in
long did
September.
Charlene work for you?
Oh, gosh. Ruth Shaw was the first secretary, which was Kim's wife. And he built 2 brush trucks in 69 and 71. And I think Ruth was doing the books and paying the bills and writing the monthly volunteer checks. And then when she got done, Charlene came in. I became chief in 76. I think Charlene started in 79. And she stayed all the way up to somewhere in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
I remember her. To me, she was always there.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
When
The
she
building
left,
was there, she was there.
Iris came in after
Yeah, but
her.
I don't remember anybody before her.
It was Ruth Shaw was
it?
before
I
her.
don't remember that.
But that was, she, like I said, she strictly done minimal. Matter of fact, when I first started, Ruth Shaw was the bookkeeper, and she never filed any Social Security or nothing for me. So my old history of Social Security when I went to retire, I had 3 or 4 or 5 years in there that showed 0 income for me because she never took Social Security out of my check.
Oh,
The fire
shit.
department never took Social Security out of my check.
No kidding.
You know, 2 or 3 years early
Records
on.
were a little looser now.
Oh yeah, back then, almost non-existent, so to speak. You know, Bill Sweeten was on the fire department. He
Yeah.
lived behind Benson's Grocery.
Yeah, Wanda was on
Kay
the late-
Setchell, I remember Kay Setchell.
Yeah, I
he had
remember
a son
Kay.
named Mike
Yeah.
Setchell.
Yeah.
They were volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
What the hell was that kid's name?
Let me think.
I can remember him going into a fire
what the heck
and it was
his
cooking,
name?
and he hadn't taken the inner liner down in his helmet, so it was up in there, and he put the helmet down so it was like this, and it burnt the tops of his ears. So he shows up at the fire station.
Roy Anderson.
That's him.
Roy
He
Anderson.
shows up at the fire station, and he looked like a Doberman pinscher that just had his ears cropped, and these big white pieces of tape sticking up on his
Where he burned them.
Oh, he was a piece of work, that boy.
Just
Marty Martinez, he was
Yeah.
that was Gus and Connie Martinez that owned autos.
Rehard Auto Supply,
Rehard Auto Supply.
where
Yep.
the beauty shop's
Yeah.
at.
Tracy Ortengren helped you when you sandblasted the old International. Wasn't it?
Yep.
And Tracy was working for Creelan Industries, and he took it down to their paint shop at the Ready Mix and painted it.
Yeah, that's Dean and I painted that.
Yeah. And Brett, he was on there as his brother.
Yeah.
Landy
I remember
Keeler.
I remember the gun getting away when we were sandblasting it.
Oh, yeah.
Catching me under here.
Yeah. Got your neck, made you raw.
Yeah, it sure did. Says, we're
Yeah.
going to have to shave that off. I said, no, you're not. just clean it.
Well, I know you guys went on fires with Landy Keeler because he
Oh,
was
yeah.
around there
Oh,
for a
yeah.
long time. He worked for the telephone company.
Yes.
Yes,
did.
he did.
You know?
Lanny and I were on 41 when the whale's tail went up.
Really?
We were the ones that we were the ones that pulled in with the truck with the pump running.
Oh,
And
okay.
opened the nozzle.
Yeah.
And knocked it down.
Pulled right through the door. I remember that.
Yep.
We were there
Yep.
with some hoses. You guys pulled up and
Let it
shot
rip.
that water right in the front with the old brush truck. Yeah, I remember that. Kim Shaw, he built both our original brush trucks,
know,
and
I-
his Ruth.
I
Wife
remember him
Ruth
very
was,
vaguely.
you know.
Vaguely.
Vague.
Yeah.
Well, he worked out at Citrus Park. He worked as a mechanic out there for Citrus Park, maintaining all their pumps and their wells and irrigation pumps and their Grove trucks and all that. And that's where he worked out of.
Was
But
that
he
where-
lived over in Bonita Shores.
I thought he worked for Shannon.
That's
He
what-
did after Citrus Park.
Okay.
When it
Oh,
started
okay.
developing into Citrus Park as an RV resort, then he went to work for Shannon Supply. And that's how we ended up hiring a fireman later on named Keith Van Gelder, but that was years after we started hiring because Keith was working with Kim, and
Okay.
Kim says, Keith, you need to get on the fire department. You know?
He's a damn good mechanic too.
Frank Crane, he worked at Fidel, he worked at Haynes Refrigeration. That's where I met him. And he was a volunteer. Then he became a realtor and he worked at Fidel Florida Realty right there at Old 41.
Yeah, yeah.
You remember Frank?
No.
You know, he still comes to your house and visits, Frank and Mary Ellen.
He's that rascal that introduced me and Darlene.
Oh yeah, and got you married, right?
And then he married me.
Yeah. Mike Mazzocchi, he was a big old Italian,
Oh, big old
about
sucker.
280 pounds, big teddy bear, do anything for you.
Oh.
But he went, man, we spent a lot of times on brush fires and pumper trucks and
Y'all
Mike
went
was
fishing and stuff together.
Mike passed, didn't he?
yeah, Mike passed. Cancer. Got him. Yeah. We fished a lot, camped a lot, hunted a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of volunteers, you know, you did a lot. There was Harvey Haynes, which he owned Haynes Refrigeration across from Station 2,
Yeah.
you know.
And he had a lot of employees.
Yeah, he had his son Tom,
Yeah.
Frank Crane, me,
Yeah, you.
Jim Rice, Mike Mazzocchi. I mean, if there was a call and we was at his shop or wherever, he allowed us to
Oh, yeah.
run to the fires or run across that morning and get on the trucks at Station
I think
2.
he expected you to do that.
Yes, he does. He
I
was
think
very
he-
civic minded.
very-
Harvey.
very-
Tom had a path mode, didn't he? Through the
Yep.
grass to get to the
Tom and
station?
Harvey mowed a path across the lots between Mango Drive and the shop.
Yeah.
And that's so we didn't have to run through the grass and the weeds going across there. Jim Rice, he worked at Haynes Refrigeration too, and he was a volunteer for a long time. You had Tom and Rick Gutnick, which were brothers.
Yep.
Tommy had, remember that old orange hot rod he had jacked up, had a straight axle out of the front? He scared me riding on that. He was worse than you when a call went off and you come down with that Dodge of yours. With that,
Wow.
we call it the
Got
yellow
there-
crate.
Got there quick, didn't I?
Yeah.
And there was one time that I was there, Tom Gutnick was there, I don't remember who else there. Run the girls were there, you guys might have been there. And there was a call somewhere down by Station 2. And I made the mistake of getting in that hot rod of Tommy's, which was jacked up, and it wasn't real stable at high speeds. And he's screaming down Beach. I says, Tommy, it's just a car fire. Slow down a little bit, you're gonna kill us. He's passing cars and we're just barely making it. And he slid into the station.
Why don't I remember that?
It was a yellow crate, jacked up, big old motor in it. That thing was wild.
I don't remember that sucker.
But Rick became the first paid fire inspector for
Yes.
us. And he was my first fire inspector to do fire inspections in town. And he broke my heart because after doing it for 2 or 3 years, he took the job with Lee County and he became their code enforcement officer for Lee County. I just felt like someone run a dagger because I just knew him and I was going to be
Forever.
together in the fire department until we retired. You know, we were great friends. You had Stuart Butch Robertson.
Butch, yep.
Butch,
Oh, Butch.
you know, he was a good. That was another volunteer. He was dependable as could be.
That would have been a conversation for you to tape.
Yeah,
There would never have been an end to it.
yeah. If he was
But
still
you
around.
had to take the words out one by one, because Butch would drag it out.
But we had a mixed bag.
We-
Mac McDonald. Remember, was you here when Mac McDonald?
He got blown up.
Yes, he at Station 2, right in front of it. There's still a gas station to this day, but he was working in the back of it,
It was a
changing a
Texaco.
tire or something. Yeah,
Oh, I
it
know.
was
who
a
you-
tractor tire.
yeah,
No, yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah,
it wouldn't,
that
wouldn't
was
fit
Mac.
in the cage.
yeah.
Was
And
it-
And he went, I'll do it. And he hooked the line up, and the thing was laying on the ground, and it blew.
You know where he was sitting when it blew?
It was right over it,
He
wasn't
was
it?
sitting down in the damn, because it was a big tractor tire.
yeah.
He was sitting down in it and holding his hand over here. I went down to the station, picked his brains off of the damn ceiling.
It blew him right up into the rafters.
Broke 2 trusses, I think.
Yeah, he survived, but he was never the same after
Never.
He
that.
had
Never the same.
one bad eye,
Yeah,
and it took out the good one.
and he had brain damage from
Yeah.
it. He
Oh,
was
God.
a good volunteer.
Broke a bunch of bones.
Yeah, and where Badcock Furniture is on Old 41, after that happened, the fire department and all the volunteers, we organized a great big dance for
Yep.
him, a fundraiser.
Yep, we did.
And we had a sellout crowd. We had live music in there. I think we had a dinner first. But we had a big band come in and raise money for him because he didn't have no insurance.
No.
I mean, that's just something we did if we had to do it, you know.
Yep, somebody got hurt, everybody stood up, you know.
You know,
Yeah.
we had Ernie Coleman and Derek Coleman and Kevin Coleman. The father was Ernie, and then Derek and Kevin. They lived down beneath shores. All 3 of them volunteered, and they responded to Station 2 a lot. So Donald may not have saw them a lot,
No,
but
I don't believe.
that might have been later on after you sold the shop or something. No, it had been before you sold the shop. They were there before that because they were volunteering. It was after I became chief, but I think before '85.
And Ernie was a commissioner.
Yes, Ernie went on to become
Yep.
one of the fire commissioners. And then you had James Weiland, which James worked, his son, what was it, James? No, David.
David.
David worked for you, but he had Johnny and
No,
David.
Johnny. James worked for me.
Yeah, but his dad's the one that had his own fire trucks out of his
Right.
house over there on Tennessee Street. They were talking about the propane thing, and he had 2 sons. And then after the fire department became a taxing entity in '65, and they started buying different insurance, and they said if the equipment don't belong to the fire department, they can't respond. So it kind of put him out of business, and I think there was some bad feelings because he donated all his time and
He
helped
was
the
there.
community out. But
Yeah.
he was there when you needed him until that point in
Insurance
time.
deal.
Insurance. Cecil Harvard, he was the old first volunteer fire chief,
Mm-hmm.
and his son Wesley Harvard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was 1 year older than me. I mean, him and I fought a lot of fires too.
Yeah.
Got married, moved out of town. Jim Morgan, he was another. He worked at, I believe, Causeway Lumber, wasn't it?
Yes. He's yeah, that's where he was. He was down at Causeway. Gee,
I mean,
some of the names just bring back, you know, you have to stop and think. Do I know? Yeah, you
See
do.
that piece of paper there? That kind of
Yeah,
helps you.
yeah.
And then Charlene Henney, she was our second secretary and bookkeeper. Randy Hayter was Charlene's son. Remember Randy?
Oh boy. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Sometimes
Good
some
old
of the
Randy.
volunteers would stay at the fire stations, have cots or something, and stay. And
You know whose name I didn't see on there?
who?
Mike.
Mike who?
The guy that was the circus wrestler.
Was he the one that broke his ankle playing softball and he was a tree trimmer?
He went into the tree business. Yep.
What was his last name? I've
That's
been
what I
trying to
could-
think of it for a week. Mike something. But
Then he went to work for Publix, I think.
yes.
But he wanted to be in the tree trimming business so bad, and he couldn't wait for the phone book to come out because his ad was going to be in there.
Mhm.
That's back when that's how you advertised. And I guess he did okay, but it was
He
tough.
loved to play softball, and most of us volunteers were on the softball teams.
Yep. He lived, the house is gone now, but it seems to me it was right near the Shangri-La. 1 or 2 houses. It was real close to the fire station.
Yes. He had, like, his wife was fairly thin, and he had 3 or 4 kids.
Yep.
And they
he's-
always looked like they were in poverty.
Yep. I know when we ripped the carpet out of that old double wide we had, and I was getting ready to throw it out, and he went, "Oh no, don't do that."
Okay, then you had Dave Covell, Carl Dottie. Carl Dottie had Morris McCormick,
Yep.
Morris,
which
yeah.
we all still know
Sure.
Morris. He's in the air conditioning
Yep.
business.
Does all our
That's who
stuff.
does
Richard
wire.
Powell and Linda Powell.
Yes.
She was in the auxiliary.
Yep.
Wesley Duda. You had Keith Kingston, lived out off of what's that right by McDonald's in
Yeah.
75. Anyway, Keith Kingston,
Yep.
Tom Craighead, Dan Beesick. I hate to mention this, but he was the first volunteer we had. He turned into an arsonist, and he had set several brush fires. And what actually got him caught, and we started suspecting him because I took all the call volumes and seen who was making all the calls, is when he set a condo on fire on Hickory Boulevard. That's when he finally got caught. But yeah, he was,
Hey,
he helped.
It
but
happens.
It happens. We had Ken Shivel and his son Keith. Ken Shivel owned a TV
Yeah,
repair.
I don't remember Keith. I remember Ken.
Yep.
His son. Huh?
Don's on there, volunteer and firefighter. Marty Camisa. Virgil Crop.
Oh, little old guy.
Yeah, remember
Little short
Virgil?
guy. Yep.
Real short,
Yep.
real mouthy a lot of times. I mean, he cracked jokes and everything. Roy Anderson, which you said the Wonder Gardens.
Dobie.
Alex Grant. We were.
Oh, my.
He went on to become.
Bugsy.
Yeah, we called him Bugsy, and went on to become a city council person in Bonita.
Yes, he did.
Christy Broughton
He's
was
still
one of
Bugsy.
my first firefighters' wives. Christy was a volunteer. Dean Jones, volunteer and first full-time firefighter. Mike Wesley, volunteer and first-time firefighter. Tim Broughton, he was a volunteer and first-time firefighter. Joey Lawhorn, he was a volunteer and first-time firefighter. Rick Reeby, he was a volunteer.
I still talk to Rick.
Yep, I do too. A guy's phone
Yep.
number. He's living in somewhere up in North Florida
Yep.
somewhere.
Yep.
Dana Haney, he was a volunteer and first firefighter. I think his uncle or somebody owned Imperial Bonita
It was
Estates.
his dad.
It was his dad. Okay, owned
Yeah.
Imperial Bonita Estates.
Yep.
And then Roger Shelley, which moved to Crown, he was volunteer, first full-time firefighter, and went on to become our first full-time fire chief, assistant fire chief. Sorry. So that's the list. But yeah, some of those. I mean, they all weren't volunteers at the same time, but they came and gone, and we
A
always.
lot of them intermingled. Yep.
Yeah.
Some left and came back.
I think at our peak we had 42 full-time volunteers, and then it just kind of, as the town grew and it got bigger, by '84 Station 2 wasn't getting a lot of response down there, and in '84 we hired the first full-time, and then what was it, about 89 or 90 we was almost out of volunteers.
Yeah.
We was all full-time.
Well, it got bad because when the station one went paid, then when the volunteers would be there, they would get all the crap work.
Oh,
The shit
yeah.
stuff. Because they weren't, and that instantly soured them.
Yeah.
And I stayed on. I went down. I went from assistant chief to deputy chief, and I kind of handled the volunteers, and they were fed up. They didn't get the recognition or the appreciation, and one by one they left, and then
You can't
got
blame
that
them.
fateful morning.
No, I wouldn't never blame them.
Just before Christmas in '88, I told Dan, I said, it's too far for me to run. I didn't mind it because I had a lot of fun driving down there with that GTX. I'd make a lot of runs at high
What
speed.
year did you move from Roseberry and Old 41 up to your new Customs?
88.
88.
88, that's when we got the CO.
Yeah. So then you was about 4.5, 5 miles away
Yeah.
versus 2.
That was a good high speed blast to
Yeah.
get down there.
Well, that was probably one of my happiest days of my life, that era, because I liked to run the fire, I liked to do the shop, and everything would just seem like right on top. The world was, I owned the world that time, you might say, kind of crudely, but it was a fun deal. Today, a different world. But I like today's world today too. Retirement's not bad. Kind of pretty dang good once in a while.
Yeah, not too shabby.
But that's about it, I guess.